are you today? So, we are gonna be basically talking about the reason Mikayla Nogueira's success could be her downfall. If that makes sense. I said could, not would. I don't know if it will, but it could. Why, I think the reason people like her is also the reason people hate her. And what we're going to be calling the Billy Mays effect. Well, I'll walk you through that in two shakes of a lamb's tail. Um, because, and I was like, all right, so I have been wanting to cover her for a second because there's just like something that I couldn't put my finger on for the longest time. I was just like, there is something here. It's like on the tip of my tongue, but I just like blink, right? But I think I've processed something here. I think I've processed something here. So we're gonna look at that. And then after that, I need to wait for my hair to dry a little bit more. It's mostly dry. It's pretty dry at the bottom, but the roots could dry some more from when I just fucking showered. So while I wait for my hair to dry, I'm gonna do another reaction to lecture 5. We're gonna continue our How to Start a Startup lecture series on the 5th lecture here. I don't think I really like the title of this lecture, but it is the title. It's called Competition is for Losers, and it is the speaker is a guy named, I think his name is Peter Thiel or some shit. I don't know how to fuck to say his last name, but well, the captioner got it. Maybe that's right. But he's the founder of PayPal, or one of the dudes that founded PayPal. So he gave this lecture in the How to Start a Startup series from Stanford that we've been watching, that is provided from this Y Combinator playlist. So yeah, and in the description of the video, there's two playlists. The one that says Y Combinator is the original material from Stanford without my commentary, and the one that says reaction and commentary is me talking shit. So yeah, fucking alrighty. I'm gonna roll my intro, and then we are gonna do this bitch. Hi, my name is Alexis, also known as Lexi or Deaf Child. I was born deaf, hard of hearing. I began doing business as Deaf Child 2013, marketing 2011, sales 2009. I've earned 50 plus certifications in marketing and sales. My Bachelor of Science from Loyola University, New Orleans, with a music industry studies major and a business administration minor. Deafness runs in my family genetically. Speech is not fully accessible to me. Anyway, I'm here to bitch about whatever the fuck is on my mind. So here we go. Visit my site at noladeafchild.com. So, with Mikayla, I had actually come across a bunch of content that was like, I don't want to call it hate, because I know some content out there about Mikayla is just hate content. It's not actually, I mean, I don't want to devalue someone's commentary or whatever, but can we just say that some of the commentary out there is just people being assholes, talking shit, and they're not actually trying to analyze it from any type of human rights issue, or they're not trying to point out, the inconsistencies for awareness. They're literally just being dip fucks, like body shaming and things like that. That I disagree with. So when I talk about, the commentary, I'm talking more about valid critiques. You know what I'm saying? Is what I validate you know, there are reasons people have where they criticize her. I feel like that, those the if those things are true, like that's valid shit, right? But then other things you will see, I see about her, I'm like, y'all need to just leave people's bodies alone. And I know I've got my own issues too, from my own needing to work on myself and stuff. But fuck, man, you know, if we can at least start trying to improve, even if I don't know. But yeah, fucking so with Mikayla, a lot of people. First of all, let's just get to the. I'm gonna do a little bit of a content audit in just a second, But so she's got 15 million followers. She is a makeup artist. You probably know who the fuck she is, but in case you don't, she's this bitch that does makeup and goes viral for makeup related content and is like a quote unquote influencer. I don't know. It's like, and our people is I, I feel like the concept of influencers is going to be shifting. Similarly to how the concept of celebrity and celebrity culture is shifted, I think the concept of influencers will be shifting. I just don't know what's coming next. I just feel like, you know what I mean? Like I need to process. We need to process all that more. Um, and I've seen people say out there like influencers are dead for like years now. So I know like that concept isn't original or new, but I feel like there's always on a certain level, like always been people who never liked celebrities, like have always seen through the bullshit, right? So for me, I'm like, what's next? Because I feel like due to capitalism, unless we see a downfall of it, which fingers crossed maybe, but fucking there's gonna be some other way of which people utilize themselves to engage audiences, and we're going to have a term for the way people do that in some form of content production, right? And so I wonder, I feel like we've shifted from celebrities, then we went by influencers, and now I see the term content creator a lot instead of influencer when it's typically like someone who's been like viral. But I wonder like if those terms will be shifting or if they are just like straight up terms that define a word and they don't change. The definition is the definition. I'm overthinking semantics. I'm sorry. I don't know what the fuck I'm on. Okay, so Mikayla, if you look up Mikayla Nogueira commentary, like Google it and you check out the videos, you just see a lot of people discuss ways that they feel like she doesn't take accountability or that she has been getting dragged or quote their words here or whatever, that she's getting called out, that she's caught lying and things like that. um, and so if you Google it, there's just video after video after video about about Mikayla Nogueira being a liar or this or that. You know what I mean? And so if you can check that out. Fucking, and then another thing, if you Google Mikayla Nogueira accent as well, and the reason I'm just showing this Google search page is just because I've seen content previously about, and I went and watched this one today because I was thinking about reacting to it, but I just decided not to because of the way this video is. But like you'll see like videos and content of where her accent has changed over time and things like that, and in the way that she speaks. And so a lot of people, based on where people perceive her to have been caught lying in some of her videos, or whether or not she is, I don't know. But I'm just saying because people perceive her that way, the evidence being, on the search engine result pages here. Um, and because of things like this accent, issue, people do perceive Mikayla as somebody who is um, not necessarily genuine or authentic. You know what I'm saying? And so now that matters. And the reason I'm bringing this up is as it relates to what I'm calling the Billy Mays effect. What I believe is going to be is the reason she does well and what's going to be her downfall. So I want to compare some of her ads real quick to some Billy Mays clips, and then I want to talk about the way the like how she replicates some of the things that made Billy Mays successful in her own way, and why I think that's why her content does well, but then also why she's going to do bad because she doesn't meet some of the expectations. And we're going to show you I'm gonna show you in a minute about what I mean, like better explanation with all that. Um, so I didn't really like look at all of these videos before, but this looks like an ad, so we're gonna check this out real quick.
At my door, Prime Bites, known for that mega.
Sorry, fucking this shit was like all the way down, so I'm gonna restart it. It doesn't have captions, unfortunately. I always hate when that happens. Um, but yeah, all right, hold up.
Look what just showed up at my door. Prime Bites, known for that mega viral protein brownies that I'm obsessed with, by the way, just released protein mini muffins. I am so excited.
Okay, and I think I can make my point here with just the beginnings of her video. So hold on. Now let's compare, let's watch a Billy Mays clip here. Hold on.
Hi, Billy Mays here with Zorbies. Hi, Billy Mays here with the awesome auger.
But all right, okay, hold on. Now let me show you another video here. Let's look at this one.
So now that I own boots, I'm like, where do I put these? So I ended up finding these really nice boot racks on Amazon. Each one fits.
Okie dokie. So you see what Billy Mays does. He's always like, Billy Mays here with another fantastic product. And then he brings out the product. He tells you what it is. He tells you what it does. One of the things that Mikayla does, she's always like, look, this brand here with, and then whatever the fucking brand is. Like, she's like, look, I got these shoes. You know what I mean? So she brings that same type of intro. She doesn't use the exact word for word format with Billy Mays here and that. Like, she doesn't always go, hey, I'm Mikayla Nogueira. But minus that, her intro is a lot like the Billy Mays boom. You know what I'm saying? Um, and let's look at a few more examples here. You can like, and then I'm gonna go into a little of my theory and then maybe more examples. But okay, this looks like an ad. Let's look at this.
Do you want a $500 gift card?
Hi, Billy Mays here for Mighty Putty. Hi,
Do you see what I'm saying though? Um, and it's because what she does is they speak on like the exact same notes for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just ignore their words. So Mikayla go, wah 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 wah. Billy May will go, wah 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 wah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if that sounds fucking crazy. Honestly though, that's how a lot of bitches sound to me. Like when I don't like being deaf, you know what I'm saying? Like when I can't hear, like for the letters that I don't hear, when those words are said, and I'm not hearing what you say. You sound like the parents in Charlie Brown, bitches. I don't know what the fuck you guys are saying to me half the time. I'm like, okay, if I can catch three words in this sentence and then smile and nod, they'll think I'm okay. Fuck. Just write some shit down. My bad. Yeah, alright. Fucking, anyway, so, but hold up. Let me just, am I wrong though? Hold on, here's another ad from. Okay, wow, that's a different format. Thanks for letting me down, bitch. Let's try, sorry, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me. Let's try this one.
Let's put together Cody's boo basket.
Filling. Billy Mays here for Mighty Mended. Hi.
I don't know, y'all do.
Halloween candy.
What the fuck is that sound? Goddamn, gross. Sorry about that, guys. Fucking. So it's about the excitement. She always hits you with that, like, a lot of people, they're like, you're screaming at me, you know? And so some people don't like it because and the reason I think they don't like it is, well, partly could be sensory overload for some people, you know what I'm saying? But also you control that with the volume. I think it comes down to where people don't like Mikayla sometimes, you know what I mean? Um, and then they will do that by like making fun of the way she talks, you know? Fucking, and I don't know about enough about Massachusetts to know if that's like what a real accent is. I do know so my dad's family lived in Alabama for over 5 generations. And fucking my mom is I was born in Mississippi, but we lived in Alabama when I was a baby. And then I lived in New Orleans since I was 12. So I've lived in the South, the deep South, my whole life. But I see certain people faking the fuck out of a Southern accent. And I'm like, that is not a valid Southern accent. And every time I think that, it comes out later. The people show the different clips of how they really talk versus the way they will exaggerate it. And I'm like, I knew it. Because it's like, no one from the South actually fucking talks that way. Like, are you kidding me? Like, whatever. But you know what I mean? So, but I don't know the Boston accent to know if that's the same with Mikayla. But I see people make that essentially same type of commentary as if Mikayla, my bad, I don't know if I can, as if she's doing that. So I don't know if she's doing that or not, and I don't like to, harp on people for the way they speak because for me, I had speech therapy for a long time. But I will say I get questioning someone's authenticity if you had previously known them to speak one way and then they switch up on you. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense. Um, Typically, in a lot of cases, there can be other circumstances where maybe that's not the case. For example, you know how like there'll be white people fucking, I mean, I think all of us white people will unintentionally be misappropriating and misusing AAVE because we don't realize how slang is appropriated, and then we accidentally start using terms we shouldn't be fucking using without knowing better, right? That is a thing. But then, besides that being part of the issue, there was also people who will intentionally um fucking use AAVE, particularly people who are white. So if a white person was previously someone who would be doing that, culturally appropriating in that way, and then they decide to decolonize, get on a decolonizing journey and work on not doing that, I would appreciate that switch up, personally. But I don't know, you know what I mean? Like fucking, but I get when people are like, this accent just changed overnight. And I totally do get on a certain level too, though, like, um, over time your accent can change. Like if you are born in one place and then you move to another and you stay there long enough, eventually you're gonna be able to speak in a more accent that's local to that region or something. I don't know if I'm making sense sometimes, or your accent might become more like localized, or it could. Am I making sense? But like on another level, I feel like there's a there's a difference between an evolution of the way you talk versus putting on a personality, if I'm making sense. And I think to a certain level, when you do any type of advertising and pitching, that is putting on a personality because no one wants to buy from a depressed bitch. You know what I mean? Unless you're selling antidepressants. Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm fucked up for that one. Or something. But I don't know if I'm making sense. Maybe I'm wrong for all of that. But yeah, fucking I don't even know what type of ramble this is. Okay, let's look at like a few more.
A Coca-Cola makeup collection? And I'm not.
Hi, Billy Mays here for Mighty Shine. Hi, Billy Mays.
And typically, one of the first things within the first 3 to 10 seconds, Mikayla, she will mention the brand name and she's done something that will capture attention. You know, even if, because even the people who don't like her, that are hate watching her, engaging with her, are still pushing her out into the algorithm, and they were still got their attention grabbed by her. You know what I'm saying? Whether or not you like her. It's like JoJo Siwa. Um, but yeah, fucking okay, so Billy Mays. Why people love Billy Mays? His energetic style, memorable voice, and enthusiasm. So, whether or not you like Mikayla's voice, her energetic style, the memorable voice, like the minute you hear that, like if you are doom scrolling, not paying attention really to your phone or something, um, then fucking the minute you hear that, you know it's her, right? And the way she basically does kind of like scream for each brand, that does portray for some people like that upbeat enthusiasm. It's kind of like the game show energy, you know what I mean? It works because it basically makes people feel like if you're excited about something, then they're gonna get excited about something. Um, but here's where it doesn't. Here's where the theory can work, and that's why I think Mikayla continues to get sales because there is still like an untapped sea of people who don't know who the fuck she is. So she's always able to still be expanding on her market to where even if she's losing people or people are falling off of that, there's enough fish in the sea and her audience has grown to where there's enough conversion rates to where that works for her. But it's also her downfall because people love Billy Mays because he was authentic. And people don't perceive um, Mikayla as authentic, in my opinion, from what I've seen. You know what I'm saying? Um, and a lot of people don't perceive her as likable. I'm not entirely sure why. Um, You know, maybe it's because the only criticisms I've seen of her are where people think that she's lying about things. So I guess maybe that is why. People don't like her because they think she's a liar, and I'm not calling her a liar. I'm just saying, you know, the Google search result page, check that out. Like a lot of people do call her a liar. I don't know if she's lying or not. I'm just saying she could be um, perceived as that. But yeah, pumpkin. So I think the Billy Mays effect here is why she's been able to keep going, but it's also why she's continuing to get called out. You know what I'm saying? Because for people who did initially like her, you know, perhaps if they first see her, or for the reason she's getting success to begin with, you know, are the same ideologies and principles that in the same manner of Billy Mays. You know what I mean? Energetic style, memorable voice, enthusiasm. I think it can, for a lot of people, besides just wanting general accountability, people who have value alignment and social issues, I think the part where her marketing has that Billy Mays nostalgia is just why it's still so popular, is also why it's so disappointing. You know what I'm saying? Because you have high expectations when someone's trying to present themselves as someone who is going to um, be able to let you know where should you be investing your resources to make your life better or easier, and you're letting them down. You know what I'm saying? um I think that's what it is, because the people who do call her a liar, a lot of the videos, when you go check that out, they do because some of them perceive her as potentially using photoshops or filters when she claims she isn't. and some of them perceive her as also editing her body or her face um, in ways that could be harmful to society in terms of how we normalize stereotypes about women and beauty, to where other girls who want to achieve that look end up doing harmful things or having a negative self image because they can't achieve a look that's unachievable. You know what I'm saying? Um, and I think there's a very big difference between, for example, Mikayla Nogueira and like Kim Kardashian. But I've seen people compare her to Kim Kardashian because of where Kim Kardashian will has done in certain ways was perceived to have set unattainable body image for women. And was it? I don't know if this was her, so I apologize if this quote is wrong. Let me Google that. Who said? Did Kim Kardashian say women need to work? Who said? Yes. So it was Kim Kardashian who told women to get up and work, and so some people think that, like, and this is from NBC News, so I'll link that in the description. And some people thought that, like, that was super fucking hypocritical and shit, and it was just someone who like sets unrealistic beauty standards, who hasn't actually understood what life is like outside the context of income disparity, you know what I'm saying? Like, actually understood shit. Fucking, in terms of what it's like for people who aren't born rich, right? So, yeah, fucking, so things like that, where it's like a lot of these people, they set unrealistic body images, and then there was a video where Kim Kardashian was crying because she didn't feel pretty enough, um, or something like that. I think I could be highly overgeneralizing wrong, and I'm just putting my feeling on that there, but I think that's what happened, um, if I'm not mistaken. So, did that happen? Kim upset about body. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Well, she defended body criticism. Um. Why do I think that she did a video about crying about her looks? Why do I feel like this happened? Okay, now I feel gaslit. Maybe this didn't happen. Whatever. I could have sworn I saw an interview. I guess it doesn't fucking matter. But my fucking point being, a lot of people, Mikayla is perceived kind of as this way, to where she will be setting unrealistic looks and expectations for looks for women, advertising certain brands as being able to make that look possible, but she actually used Photoshop and other things in order to achieve the look. If those were things were happening, this is why people are upset at her. Um, from me summarizing that, right? And so that right there is why she's going downhill. Like, no, Billy May, nobody was ever let down by Billy Mays. You know what I'm saying? Like, OxyClean is the shit. OxyClean is going strong.
Mays here. Hi, Billy Mays here for the Steam Buddy.
And here's the thing, like with Billy Mays, he actually demoed his products and showed them working in action. Um, So yeah, even if it was like all staged and set up in order to film to do it, I just feel like you're getting a more realistic demonstration from him versus, because he's not photoshopping him what the fuck the product or the deliverable is. You know what I'm saying? Or if he did, I'm sure he would have gotten called out on by now, but who knows? You know what I mean? But yeah, fucking. So that's what I've processed on Mikayla Nogueira so far. People really don't like her. I don't know if her accent's real or fake. I do think some criticisms people are making about her body are just possibly misogynistic and body shaming and maybe fat phobic. But other people are making some valid criticisms about how she could be setting unrealistic expectations for looks and possibly misleading people when it comes to the results of achievable results with products. And she's not being upfront with her advertising, with her use of, effects or anything else to edit the way something is looked. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's, like in person or online. She does seem to do a lot of looks. Ooh, I just dropped some clips. Life is hard. She does seem to do like a lot of like editing and shit like that. Um, if I'm making sense. Like,
Patrick Todd dropped new holiday lip glosses and they look absolutely beautiful.
so yeah, I feel like that there are some criticisms where people feel like a lot of too much editing is going on in some of the like right here, perhaps it is makeup and lighting, perhaps I'm wrong. um I just feel like typically you're gonna it's I don't know, I feel like typically there's some touch up happening when you get to this level, but that's just me. um I feel like other creators have done better job explaining, like going through that actually know photography and videography and can properly explain. Because I never studied photography or videography, so I can't properly explain where the photo editing is or why. I can only just say it. I feel like for some reason it just reminds me of like those photos where my friends, when they would use photoshops of me, like they would be editing my face and they would take pimples off my face, and would know there's a fucking pimple there, but they would be taking it off, right? And so then something about the smoothness on her face in some of these videos reminds me of when they did that filter to my face. And so in my head I'm like, so fucking but yeah, I don't know, or whatever the fuck they do to it. I don't know if it's like the filter is the right word for what if it's done, if they do that or some type of touch up thing. But yeah, that's why I was like questioning, because I'm like, but I don't know because I don't do photography or videography or makeup. So like, what if it's just the makeup, and the makeup is, and that's just what it looks like with the makeup on your skin. So, you know what I mean? Like I know I'm very like not informed in relation to that. All right, I feel like I'm not really adding value to this anymore, or was I ever? So, fucking, all right, fucking, we're just gonna move on here. You get the point. You get the point, I think. What I'm calling the Billy Mays effect. Um, and I kind of feel like I want to process this Billy Mays effect a little bit more and talk about why it's working so well in marketing. Because I feel like we need to talk about Billy Mays effect as well as Arnold Schwartz, one called That's All. You know what I'm talking about? You know what? All right. Not Arnold. Wait, why am I saying Arnold Schwartz? It's Morris Bart. What the fuck is wrong with me? Who the fuck is Arnold Schwartz anyway? Oh, Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's funny. Anyway, okay, I'm sorry. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me. Luckily for me, no one watches this shit though. So, next up, we're gonna watch Lecture 5, Competition is for Losers. And this comes from Peter Thiel. Um, and this is that dude that's one of the founders from PayPal. I don't know who the fuck he is. But I don't know. He was in business with Elon Musk, and fuck Elon Musk, so you know what I mean? But yeah, I'm sure I'll have a lot to criticize here. We're going to be watching this on 2 times speed, and here we go.
All right, good afternoon. Today's speaker is Thiel. Peter was the founder of PayPal and Palantir and Founders Fund and invested in most of the tech companies in Silicon Valley. And he's going to talk about strategy and competition. Thanks for coming, Peter.
Awesome. Thanks. Sam, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me. I sort of have I have a single EJ thesis that I'm completely obsessed with on the business side, which is that if you're starting a company, if you're the founder, entrepreneur starting a company, you always want to aim for monopoly, and you want to always avoid competition. And so hence competition is for losers. Something we'll be talking about today. I'd like to start by saying something about the basic idea of when you start one of these companies, how you go about creating value. And there's this question: what makes a business valuable? And I want to suggest that there's basically a very simple formula that you have a valuable company if two things are true. Number one, that it creates X dollars of value for the world, and number two, that you capture Y% of X. And the critical thing that I think people always miss in this sort of analysis is that X and Y are completely independent variables. And so X can be very big, Y can be very small. X can be an intermediate size, and if Y is reasonably big, you can still get a very big business. So to create a valuable company, you have to basically both create something of value and capture.
So in my part 2 of the 60-hour marketing challenge, if you did that whole live reading thing, I talk about the law of averages and the Pareto principle. And in that discussion, we literally cover this whole part of where a business is looking to add value regarding dollars of value and the effort you can spend for X amount of effort to get Y result. So that's what the fuck this is reminding me of right off the bat right here.
Capture some fraction of the value of what you've created. And sort of just to illustrate this as a contrast, if you sort of compare the US airline industry with a company like Google on search, if you sort of measure by the size of these industries, you could say that airlines are still more important than search. If you just measure it, say, by revenues. There's 195 billion in domestic revenues in 2012. Google had just north of 50 billion. And certainly, sort of on some intuitive level, if you said, if you're given a choice and said, well, do you want to get rid of all air travel, or do you want to get rid of your ability to use search engines? The intuition would be that air travel is something that's more important than search. This is, of course, just domestic numbers. If you look at this globally, airlines are much, much bigger than search than Google is. But the profit margins are quite a bit less. They were marginally profitable in 2012. I think the entire 100-year history of the airline industry, the cumulative profits in the US have been approximately zero. The companies make money, they episodically go bankrupt, they get recapitalized, and you sort of cycle and repeat. And this is reflected in the combined market capitalization of the airline industries, maybe something of the US airline industry, something like a quarter that of Google. So you have a search engine much smaller than air travel, but much more valuable. I think this reflects these very different valuations on X and Y. So if we look at perfect competition, there's some pros and cons to the world of perfect competition. On a high level, it's always this is what you study in Econ 1. It's easy to model, which I think is why econ professors like talking about perfect competition. It somehow is efficient, especially in a world where things are static, because you have all the consumer surplus gets captured by everybody, and politically, it's what we're told is good in our society, that you want to have competition, and this is somehow a good thing. Of course, there are a lot of negatives. It's generally not that good if you're involved in anything that's hyper competitive, because you often don't make money. I'll come back to this a little bit later. So I think at one end of the spectrum, you have industries that are perfectly competitive, and at the other end of the spectrum, you have things that I would say are monopolies. And
So in college, this dude, one of my professors had this sign up, and it basically said collaboration, not competition. And I really like that. But where the focus is on collaboration over competition. I feel like a certain amount of competition can be healthy because it encourages you to perform better, to compete against someone else sometimes. But I think valuing collaboration over competition is better, in my opinion, because if you live your life only competing and you don't think about, and you're not also involved in collaboration, in my opinion, then that can be very isolating. And that's where you're just not part of a community. And that, in my opinion, could lead to failure. You you might get certain things off the ground, but is it really sustainable? You know what I'm saying? Who knows? I don't know if I'm making sense. But yeah. Alright. So, oh, you know what? I just realized I forgot to run a little Ink by Cass ad. So, just a reminder, if you're near Houston, Texas, and you're interested in getting a tattoo, you should check out the Vico Ink by Cass tattoo. Get yourself a tattoo. Yeah, I can't speak. You know what I mean. Alrighty. Okay, let's keep doing this.
and they're much stable, longer-term businesses. You have more capital, and if you get a creative monopoly for inventing something new, I think it's symptomatic of having created something really valuable. And so I do think this, the sort of the extreme binary view of the world I always articulate is that there are exactly two kinds of businesses in this world. There are businesses that are perfectly competitive, and there are businesses that are monopolies. And there's shockingly little that is in between. And this dichotomy is.
Wait a minute though. I was just thinking because he's saying competition is bad, and his title, or he's not saying competition is bad, but I don't know. But okay, his title is competition is for losers, which could imply that competition is bad, right? But if you're a loser, wouldn't that imply a winner? And how is there a winner and a loser if there isn't a competition? You know what I'm saying? So am I wrong for thinking this title is hypocritical? Or is that just me?
Not understood very well because people are constantly lying about the nature of the businesses they're in. This is why this is, in my mind, this is the most important. It's not necessarily the most important thing in business, but I think it's the most important business idea that people don't understand. That there are just these two kinds of businesses. And so let me say a little bit about the lies that people tell. And so you basically, if you sort of imagine that there was a spectrum of companies from perfect competition to monopoly, the apparent differences are quite small because the people who have monopolies pretend not to. They will basically say, and it's because you don't want to get regulated by the government, you don't want the government to come after you, so you'll never say that you have a monopoly. So anyone who has a monopoly will pretend that they're in incredible competition. And on the other end of the spectrum, if you are incredibly competitive, and if you're in some sort of business where you will never make any money, you'll be tempted to tell a lie that goes in the other direction, where you will say that you're doing something unique that is somehow less competitive than it looks because you will want to differentiate, you want to try to attract capital or something like that. So if the monopolists pretend not to have monopolies, non-monopolists pretend to have monopolies, the apparent difference is very small, whereas the real difference I submit is actually quite big. So there's this distortion that happens because of the lies people tell about their businesses, and the lies are sort of in these opposite directions. Let me drill a little bit down further on the way these lies work. And so,
On a certain level, I can see what he means about lying because people will lie to me about their marketing budget, for example, and it's like I can't give you realistic advice for where you're at financially if you're not honest with me about your numbers. So I get where I've had like struggles with that before, where people are like ashamed to be fully honest about how we're doing in marketing and business and sales because of income disparity and capitalism and shit. Um, fucking, so yeah, I get that. Um, but on another level, I don't like when people treat so I was working with one attorney at a law office, and one of the attorneys said, "How do you know when a client is lying? Whenever they open their lips." And I was just like, that bothered me. I don't know. On a certain level, I think it's healthy to be pessimistic when it comes to the expectation that it is realistic to expect people to lie, of course. I do think there's a healthy level of, yeah, you should expect people to lie because they do. But to treat every single person or to generalize people as a liar, particularly when that's your customer, your market, and the people who need you to help them and that you're supposed to be helping, there's just something that bothered me. Um, and it's like, fucking, I don't know. And so when he talks about, people lying in business, on a certain degree, I can agree that people lie a lot in business. So yeah, I guess, like there is space to discuss and call out liars. I've been fucking doing that. But on another level, I'm like, I don't really like when we just generalize, like, oh, okay, everybody's lying. Because sometimes I feel like when we do that, when we self project, when I see people self project that way, it's typically I realize later they're doing that, if that makes sense sometimes. Um, if they're doing that without evidence, right? Like some people will be like, she's lying, and then there's like evidence, like, yeah, obviously that's, here's Exhibit A, Exhibit B, right? So obviously that wouldn't apply there. And I understand also there's times where someone's lying and you can't fucking prove it. I don't think that applies there either, even though I know that happens. But I'm speaking in my head, like, when people, you know what I mean, are just, like, going out just saying fucking shit. Um, you know what I mean? Like when someone's like, "Oh, you've defamed me, but can't tell me what I said that was defamatory." You know what I mean? So, on a certain level, I'm like, I don't like perpetuating or normalizing an idea that all business owners are liars either, though, because not all business people are. I know a certain type are, for sure. I don't know. Okay, I gotta stop. Let's keep going.
The basic lie you tell as a non-monopoly is that we're in a very small market. The basic lie you tell as a monopoly is that the market you're in is much bigger than it looks. And so typically, if you want to think this in sort of set theoretic terms, you could say that a monopoly tells a lie where you describe your business as the union of these vastly different markets, and the non-monopolist describes it as the intersection. So that, in effect, if you're a non-monopolist, you will rhetorically describe your market as super small. You're the only person in that market. If you have a monopoly, you'll describe it as super big, and there's lots of competition in it. So some examples of how this works in practice. So I always use restaurants as the example of a terrible business. There's always sort of ideas. Capitalism and competition are antonyms. Capital, someone accumulates capital. A world of perfect competition is a world where all the capital gets competed away. So you're opening a restaurant business. No one wants to invest because you just lose money. So you have to tell some idiosyncratic narrative, and you'll say something like, "Well, we're the only British food restaurant in Palo Alto." So it's British, Palo Alto, and of course that's too small a market because people may be able to drive all the way to Mountain View or even Menlo Park, and there probably are no people who eat nothing but British food. At least no people who are still alive. And so that is that's a sort of a fictitiously narrow market. There's sort of a Hollywood version of this where the way movies always get pitched is, okay, it's like a college football star, joins an elite group of hackers to catch the shark that killed his friend. Sorry. And so now that is a movie that has not yet been made. But the question is that the right category, or is the correct category it's just another movie? In which case, there are lots of those. It's super competitive, incredibly hard to make money. No one ever.
Honestly, the football star who joins the hackers jaw thing should happen. That just sounds like a good movie idea.
Makes money in Hollywood doing movies. It's really, really hard. And so you always have this question about, does the intersection, is it real? Does it make sense? Does it have value? That one should ask. And of course, there are startup versions of this where the sort of really bad versions, you just take a whole series of buzzword sharing.
If Sharknado is a thing, why can't this be?
Mobile social apps, you combine them and you have some kind of narrative, and whether or not that's a real business or not is generally a bad sign. So it's almost this pattern recognition. When you have this rhetoric of this sort of intersections, it generally does not work. The something of somewhere is really mostly just the nothing of nowhere. It's like the Stanford of North Dakota. One of a kind, but it's not Stanford. So let's look at the opposite. The opposite lie is if you are, let's say, the search company that's down the street from here and has about a happy 66% market share.
Honestly, I'm not sure some of this is aging well because I feel like, so this is, in the context of 10 years ago, so technology wasn't where it is today with how some of things operate. So where he's saying, like, a lot of these things wouldn't be connected, even though they sound great, they actually are connected because, so he's saying the startup version of football, hackers, and Jaws, which are not connected, if I got that right, is what he was saying. The startup version is sharing mobile social apps. You know what I'm saying? Like, but today, having an app, being on mobile, social media, and sharing, like, those are all things you have to be doing with marketing. So that is what you should be doing as a startup. So did I get that wrong? So was he actually saying the Blockbuster movie was a good idea like I thought it was? Or was he saying that was a bad idea? I didn't get that. I don't think I processed that right. Okay, so if I'm wrong and he said that was a good idea, I'm not going back. Fuck it. I'm just going to be right or wrong right now. I'm not going to rewatch this right now. Fuck it. If he said the Blockbuster movie thing was a bad idea, and he compared the startup version slide to that, calling it a bad idea, then I'm like, that didn't age well. Maybe 10 years ago, there were valid reasons to say that, but now, definitely not. But if he was saying this was a good idea and so was this, then I'm like dead wrong. I don't know. Okay, let's just keep going.
And is completely dominant in the search market. Google has almost never describes itself as a search engine these days, and instead it describes itself in all these different ways. So it sometimes says it's an advertising company. So if it was search, you'd say, wow, it has this huge market share. That's really, really crazy. It's like an incredible monopoly. It's much bigger. It's a much more robust monopoly than Microsoft ever had in the 90s. Maybe that's why it's making so much money. But if you say it's an advertising market, you could say, well, there's search advertising is 17 billion, and that's part of online advertising, which is much bigger, and then all U.S. advertising is bigger, and then by the time you get to global advertising, that's close to 500 billion, and so you're talking about 3.5%. So a tiny part of this much larger market. Or if you don't want to be an advertising company, you can always say that you're a technology company. And so let me see. And so the
So what he's doing is looking at total addressable markets of given sectors. I don't know what time period this is for, but what these numbers tell you is the most amount of revenue generated in a given time frame theoretically for a different sector, and how much money is being generated in an industry can often tell people whether or not it's a viable industry to go into if other people are at a given time able to generate profit off of it, if that makes sense.
the technology market is something like a $1 trillion market, and the narrative that you tell as Google in the technology market is, well, we're competing with all the car companies with our self-driving cars, we're competing with Apple on TVs and iPhones, we're competing with Facebook, we're competing with Microsoft on Office products, we're competing with Amazon on cloud services, and so we are in this giant technology market where there's competition in every direction you look, and no, we're not the monopoly the government's looking for, and we should not get regulated in any way whatsoever. And so I think one has to always be super aware that there are these very powerful incentives to distort the nature of these markets one way or the other. So the evidence of narrow markets in the tech industry is if you basically just if you look at sort of some of the big tech companies, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, they've just been building up cash for year after year, and you have these incredibly high profit margins. And I would say that one of the reasons the tech industry in the U.S. has been so successful financially is because it's prone to creating all these monopoly-like businesses, and and it's reflected by the fact that these companies just accumulate so much cash they don't even know what to do with it beyond a certain point. And so let me say a few things about how to build a monopoly. And I think one of the sort of very counterintuitive ideas that comes out of this monopoly thread is that you want to go after small markets. If you're a startup,
Why would you want to build a monopoly though? I think it's one thing to argue like how to build a offer that that is different from what anyone else is being, to where you're going to be the only one on the market doing it like you're doing it, right? Like that's one thing that I think is a positive. But I feel like I associate monopolization of a market or total control of a market as a negative connotation, where someone's intentionally like trying to like I don't know. I feel like monopolization of a market where one person's able to control all those resources isn't healthy, but that's just my opinion. Is not healthy is what I'll say. Um but yeah, fucking I don't know. But we're saying start small, monopolize. Why would you want to monopolize? On a certain level, I guess, like, I feel like, thinking about how you're going to succeed, or, I don't know, I don't even feel like I really like the words choice, that's common when it comes to people talking about dominating the market. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe there's some issue there. Maybe I got issues.
you want to get to monopoly. You're starting a new company, you want to get to monopoly. Monopolies, you have a large share of a market. How do you get to a large share of a market? You start with a really small market, and you take over that whole market, and then over time, you find ways to expand that market in concentric circles. And the thing that's always a big mistake is going after a giant market on day one, because that's typically evidence that you somehow haven't defined the categories correctly, and it normally means that there's going to be too much competition in one way or another. And so I think almost all the
On a certain degree, he's right in terms of if there's already a lot of profit in a market, that does mean there's high competition. But I don't think that should deter you in general. For example, tattoos. You know what I mean? If you're a tattoo shop, that's going to have a high revenue, high total addressable market. There's going to be a high competition. Doesn't mean you can't make it as a tattoo artist. You know what I mean? Um, there's high competition in almost every industry. There are industries with low competition, but in almost every industry that has long-term sustainability, there is high competition and there's high total addressable market for it. So total addressable market, like would that it can mean high competition, but does also mean long-term sustainability. So if you get it, you get it. You know what I mean? When you have a lower total addressable market, that can just mean that nobody else is offering something to the market that they want, or it could mean no one wants that fucking thing. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes with a higher total addressable market, you do guarantee that people want that fucking thing. So I don't know, just saying.
successful companies in Silicon Valley had some model of starting with small markets and expanding. And if you take Amazon, you start with just a bookstore. We have all the books in the world, so it's a better bookstore than anybody else has in the world. When it starts in the 90s, it's online. There's things you can do you can't do before, and then you gradually expand into all sorts of different forms of e-commerce and other things beyond that. eBay. You start with Pez dispensers, you move on to Beanie Babies, and eventually it's all these different auctions for all these sorts of different goods. And what was very counterintuitive about many of these companies is they often start with markets that are so small that people don't think that they're valuable at all when you get started. The PayPal version of this was we started with power sellers on eBay, which was about 20,000 people. When we first saw this happening in December of '99, January 2000, right after we launched, there was a sense that these were all it was such a small market. It was terrible. We thought these were terrible customers to have. It's just people selling junk on the internet. Why in the world do we want to be going after this market? But there was a way to get a product that was much better for everybody in that market. You could and we got to something like 25-30% market penetration in 2 or 3 months, and you got some walk-in, you got brand recognition, and you're able to build a business from there. So I always think these very small markets are quite underrated. The Facebook version of this I always give is that the initial market at Facebook was 10,000 people at Harvard. It went from 0 to 60% market share in 10 days. That was a very auspicious.
I will say I do think, discussing how it can be underrated to go after a smaller market is a good talking point. Like, I do agree, like, people will often overlook an opportunity to be the only person doing something because they're more focused on doing what everybody else is doing. So I do see that too.
Start. The way this gets analyzed in business schools is always, that's ridiculous, it's such a small market, it can't have any value at all. And so I think the business school analysis of Facebook early on, or of PayPal early on, or of eBay early on, is that the markets were perhaps so small as to have almost no value. And they would have had little value had they stayed small. They turned out were ways to then grow them concentrically, and that's what made them so valuable. Now I think the opposite version of this is always where you have super big markets. And there's so many different things that went wrong with all the clean tech companies in the last decade. But one theme that ran through almost all of them was they all started with massive markets. Every clean tech PowerPoint presentation that one saw in the years 2005 to 2008, which was sort of the clean tech bubble in Silicon Valley, started with, we're in the energy market. We're in a market that's measured in hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars, and then once you're sort of a minnow in a vast ocean, that's not a good place to be. That means that you have tons of competitors, and you don't even know who all the competitors are. And so you want to be a one-of-a-kind company where it's the only one in a small ecosystem. You don't want to be the 4th online pet food company. You don't want to be the 10th thin film solar panel company. You don't want to be the 100th restaurant in Palo Alto. Your restaurant industry is a $1 trillion industry. So if you do a market size analysis, you conclude restaurants are a fantastic business to go into. And it's often large markets, large existing markets, typically mean that you have tons of competition. Very, very hard to differentiate. So the first.
Well, I think what we need to disclose here is total addressable market isn't an indicator of profitability. You know what I'm saying? That's the disconnect. People see total addressable market and then they think, oh, other people are making money, so I can too. But there's like this total addressable market only indicates a demand. It doesn't indicate your ability to enter the market or perform in it. You know what I'm saying? That's a whole different conversation, in my opinion.
First, very counterintuitive idea is to go after small markets, often markets that are so small people don't even notice them, they don't think that they make sense. That's where you get a foothold, and then if those markets are able to expand, you can scale it into a big monopoly business. A second sort of.
I do agree that any time you're trying to scale, you start small and then you slowly grow. Because a lot of people, for example, they want to immediately become known worldwide. But typically the best way to approach your growth as a business is to start locally, get local press, and then you get state press, and then you get national press, and then we go to global. So a lot of people, they want to get instantly written up in a big ass magazine. Well, do you have big ass magazine money? No? Okie dokie, let's start on the local write-ups. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? That's how the conversation typically goes. So on another level, I totally get, I do agree, start small and then we grow. You know what I mean?
There's sort of several different characteristics of these monopoly businesses that I like to focus on, and there's probably no sort of single formula to it. And I always think that in technology, there's always a sense that the history of technology is such that every moment happens only once. And so the next Mark Zuckerberg won't build a social network, the next Larry Page won't be building a search engine, the next Bill Gates won't be building an operating system. And if you're copying these people, you're not learning from them. But there is always these very unique businesses that are doing something that's not been done before end up having the potential to be a monopoly. If you're the opening line in Anna Karenina is that all happy families are alike, all unhappy families are unhappy in their own special way. And the opposite is true in business, where I think all happy happy companies are different because they're doing something very unique. All unhappy companies are alike because they fail to escape the essential sameness that is competition. And so one sort of characteristic of a monopoly technology company is some sort of proprietary technology. My sort of crazy, somewhat arbitrary rule of thumb is you want to have a technology that's an order of magnitude better than the next best thing. So Amazon had over 10 times as many books, maybe not that high tech, but you figured out a way to sell 10 times as many books in an efficient online way. PayPal, the alternative for PayPal was using checks to send money on eBay, took 7 to 10 days to clear. PayPal could do it more than 10 times as fast. So you want to have some sort of very powerful improvement in some order, maybe order of magnitude improvement on some key dimension. Of course, if you actually come with something totally new, it's just like an infinite improvement. So I would say the iPhone was the first smartphone that worked, and so that's like maybe not infinite, but it's sort of definitely order of magnitude or more of improvement. So I think the technology is designed to give you a massive delta over the next best thing. I think there often are network effects that can kick in that really help. The thing that's very and these leaked monopolies over time. The thing that's very tricky about network effects is they're often very hard to get started. And so even though everyone understands how valuable they are, there's always this incredibly tricky question: why is it valuable to the first person who's doing something? Economies of scale. If you have something with very high fixed costs, very low marginal costs, that's typically a monopoly-like business. And then there's this thing of branding, which is sort of like just this idea that gets lodged in people's brains. I never quite understand how branding works, so I never invest in companies where it's just about branding. But it is, I think, a real phenomenon that creates real value. I think one of the things I'm going to come back to this a little bit towards the end, but one thing that's very striking is that software businesses are often are for some reason very good at some of these things. They're especially good at the economies of scale part because the marginal.
Okay, I really love how he is breaking down like the whole concept of why branding is so important. Because when I discuss that with people, they don't understand. So the difference between marketing and branding: marketing is short term, branding is long term. Branding is the long term are the long term ways that you want people to perceive you. And so you influence that based on logos, based on slogans, based on brand elements, such as, there could be vector images or, different illustrations relevant to your brand, um, or different things that you do, like for me, you could consider like perhaps the segments that I do, or like the different vector transparent pings that I do, or my merchandise, right? And so with branding, it's all about influencing customers' perception of you and looking at being able to create something to where people recognize you, to where when they see a branded element, they look at that and they then associate it with you specifically. Um, Marketing itself can be marketing anything, any offer of your company. And branding is marketing, but not all marketing is branding, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm making sense. A rectangle could be a square, but a square is not a rectangle.
Cost of software is zero. And so if you get something that works in software, it's often significantly better than the existing solution. And then you have these tremendous economies of scale, and you can scale fairly quickly. So even if the market starts small, you can grow your business quickly enough to stay at the same size as the growing market and maintain the sort of monopoly power. Now, the critical thing about these monopolies is it's not enough to have a monopoly for just a moment. The critical thing is to have one that lasts over time. And so in Silicon Valley is always the sort of idea that you want to be the first mover. And I always think it's in some ways, the better framing is you want to be the last mover. You want to be the last.
I love how he's over here talking about monopolies. So I know PayPal owns Venmo. Who the fuck owns Cash App? Cash App, watch your back. He's coming for you. I'm just kidding. He's the one over to talk about monopolies now.
Company in a category. Those are the ones that are really valuable. Microsoft was the last operating system, at least for many decades. Google is the last search engine. Facebook will be valuable if it turns out to be the last social networking site. And one way to think of this last mover value is this idea that most of the value in these companies exists far in the future. If you do sort of a discounted cash flow analysis of the business, you have sort of all these profit streams, you have a growth rate, the growth rate's much higher than the discount rate, and so most of the value exists far in the future. I did this exercise at PayPal in March of 2001. We've been in business for about 27 months, and we sort of had, the growth rate was 100% a year. We're discounting future cash flows by about 30%. And it turned out that about 3/4 of the value of the business as of 2001 came from cash flows in years 2011 and beyond. And whenever you do the math on any of these tech companies, you get to an answer that's something like that. So if you are trying to analyze any of the tech companies in Silicon Valley, Airbnb, Twitter, Facebook, any emerging internet companies, all the ones in Y Combinator, the math tells you that 3/4, 85% of the value is coming from cash flows in years 2024 and beyond. It's very, very far in the future. And so one of the things that we always overvalue in Silicon Valley is growth rates, and we undervalue durability, because growth is something you can measure in the here and now, and you can always track that very precisely. The question of whether a company's still going to be around a decade from now, that's actually what dominates the value equation, and that sort of is a much more qualitative sort of a thing. And so if we went back to this idea of these characteristics of monopoly, proprietary technology, network effects, economies of scale, You can think of these characteristics as ones that exist at a moment in time where you capture a market and take it over, but you also want to think about, are these things going to last over time? And so there's a time dimension to all these characteristics. So network effects often have a great time element where as the network scales, the network effects actually get more robust. And so if you have a network effect business, that's often one that can become a bigger and stronger monopoly over time. Proprietary technology is always a little bit of a tricky one. So you want something that's order of magnitude better than the state of the art in the world today. And that's how you get people's attention. That's how you initially break through. But then you don't want.
I don't think I've ever seen somebody try to act like a monopoly is a good thing before. I feel like that's why this is such a mindfuck for me. It's like my whole life I've been taught monopolizing it should basically be illegal. Down with monopolies. Monopolizing is typically exploitation. And so where he's all like, yeah, let's find out how you can monopolize your shit. I'm like, So on one level, I feel like a certain degree of being the only person to do what you do can be like cool. But on another level, it's just like when you're over here, like, how can we make sure we're the only ones? That I'm like, that's fishy, right? Am I wrong? I need to process this.
Want to be superseded by somebody else. So there are all these areas of innovation where there was tremendous innovation, but no one made any money. So disk drive manufacturing in the 1980s, you could build a better disk drive than anybody else. You could take over the whole world, and 2 years later, someone else would come along and replace yours. In the course of 15 years, you got vastly improved disk drives, so it had great benefit to consumers, but it didn't actually help the people who started these companies. And so there's always this question about having a huge breakthrough in technology, but then also being able to explain why yours will be the last breakthrough, or at least the last breakthrough for a long time, where you make a breakthrough and then you can keep improving on it at a quick enough pace that no one can ever catch up. So if you have a structure of the future where there's a lot of innovation and other people will come up with new things in the thing you're working on, that's great for society. It's actually not that good for your business typically. And then economies of scale we already talked about. So I think this last mover thing is very critical. I'm always tempted, I don't want to overdo the chess analogies, but the first mover in chess is someone who plays white. White is about 1/3 of the pawn advantage. So there's a small advantage going first. You want to be the last mover who wins the game. And so there's a Capablanca world champion, chess champion Capablanca line. You must begin by studying the end game. And I do think that's, I wouldn't say that's the only thing you should study. I think this sort of perspective of asking these questions, why will this still be the leading company 10, 15, 20 years from now, is a really critical one to try to think through. Let me sort of, I want to sort of go in two slightly other directions with this monopoly versus competition idea. And I think this is the central idea in my mind for business, for starting business, for thinking about them. And there are some very interesting perspectives I think it gives on the whole, the whole history of innovation and technology and science, because we've lived through 250, 300 years of incredible technological progress in many, many different domains, steam engine to railways to telephones, refrigeration, household appliances, the computer revolution, aviation, all sorts of different areas of technological innovation. And then there's sort of analogous thing that we can say about science, where we've lived through centuries of enormous amounts of innovation in science as well. And the thing that I think people always miss when they think about these things is that because X and Y are independent variables, some of these things can be extremely valuable innovations, but the people who invent them, who come up with them, do not get rewarded for this. And certainly, you go back to you create X dollars in value, you capture Y% of X. I would suggest that the history of science has generally been one where Y is 0% across the board. The scientists never make any money. They're always deluded into thinking that they live in a just universe that will reward them for their work and for their inventions. And this is probably the fundamental delusion that scientists tend to suffer from in our society. And even in technology, there are sort of many different areas of technology where there were great innovations that created tremendous value for society. But people.
I love how he's like, so you need to monopolize everything, but also people aren't being valued. So I'm just like, There is a good point here, though. Like, a lot of people who actually invented things don't even get credit for the shit they invented. I need to link my Alexander Graham Bell video on the telephone inscription of this video. Okay, let's keep.
Did not actually capture that much of the value. And so I think there is this sort of whole history of science and technology that can be told from the perspective of how much value was actually captured. And certainly there are entire sectors where people didn't capture anything. So you're the smartest physicist of the 20th century. You come up with special relativity. You come up with general relativity. You don't get to be a billionaire. You don't even get to be a millionaire. It just somehow doesn't work that way. The railroads, incredibly valuable. Most of them just went bankrupt because there was too much competition. Wright brothers, you fly the first plane, you don't make any money. And so I think there is sort of a structure to these industries that's very important. And I think the thing that's actually rare are the success cases. So it's actually, when you really think about the history in this 250-year sweep, Y is almost always 0%. It's always 0 in science. It's almost always in technology. And so it's very rare where people made money. The late 18th, early 19th century, the first industrial revolution was the textile mills, the steam engine, sort of automated things, and you had these relentless improvements that people improved efficiency of textile factories, of manufacturing generally, at a clip of 5 to 7% every year, year after year, decade after decade. You had 60, 70 years of tremendous improvement from 1780 to 1850. But even in 1850, most of the wealth in Britain was still held by the landed aristocracy. The workers didn't make that much. The capitalists didn't make that much either. It was all competed away. There were hundreds of people running textile factories. It was an industry that just the structure of the competition prevented people from making any money. And so I think in my mind, there probably are only.
Did he just say the capitalists didn't make that much either? I think there's a statement to be made about how not all entrepreneurs are profitable, right? But to be like the capitalists didn't make that much money. Are we in the same universe?
two broad categories in the entire history of the last 250 years where people have actually come up with new things and made money doing so. One is these sort of vertically integrated complex monopolies, which people did build in the second industrial revolution at the end of the 19th and start of the 20th century. And so this was like Ford, it was the vertically integrated oil companies like Standard Oil. And what these vertically integrated
Okay, I guess we have different ideas of what a monopoly is then, because I understand that technically, like, Henry Ford is known in America as like the inventor of the car, or blah blah blah, or something like that. But I wouldn't say he monopolized the industry because other bitches were making cars. He wasn't able to maintain a monopoly on the industry. You know what I'm saying? So, what the fuck does he mean by monopoly then? Or am I being too literal? I don't know.
monopolies typically required was this very complex coordination. You got a lot of pieces to fit together in just the right way. When you assembled it, you had a tremendous advantage. This is actually done surprisingly little today. So I think this is sort of a business form that when people can pull it off is very valuable. It's typically fairly capital intensive. We live sort of in a culture where it's very hard to get people to buy into anything that's super complicated and takes very long to build. But when I sort of think about my colleague Elon Musk from PayPal's success with Tesla and SpaceX, I think the key to these companies was the complex, vertically integrated monopoly structure they had. So if you sort of look at Tesla or SpaceX, you ask, was there sort of a single breakthrough? And they certainly innovated on a lot of dimensions. I don't think there was a single 10x breakthrough in battery storage or maybe working on some things in rocketry, but there was no sort of single massive breakthrough. But what was really impressive was integrating all these pieces together and doing it in a way that was more vertically integrated than most of their competitors. So Tesla, you also integrated the car distributors so they wouldn't steal all the money as happened with the rest of the car industry in the US. Or SpaceX, you basically pulled in all the subcontractors where most of the large aerospace companies have single source subcontractors that are able to sort of charge monopoly profits and make it very hard for the integrated aerospace companies to make money. And so vertical integration, I think, is sort of a very underexplored modality of technological progress that people would do well to look at more. And then I think there is something about software itself that's very, very powerful. Software has these incredible economies of scale, these low marginal costs, and there is something about the world of bits as opposed to the world of atoms where you can often get very fast adoption. And the fast adoption is critical to capturing and taking over markets, because even if you have a small market, if the adoption rate is too slow, there'll be enough time for other people to enter that market and compete with you. Whereas if you have a small to mid-sized market and have a fast adoption rate, you can take over this market. And so I think this is one of the reasons Silicon Valley has done so well and why software has been this phenomenal industry. And what I would suggest, what I want to leave you with is there are sort of these different rationalizations people give for why certain things work and why certain things don't work. And I think these rationalizations always obscure this question of creating X dollars in value and capturing Y% of X. So the science rationalization we're always told is that the scientists aren't interested in making money. They're doing it for charitable reasons, and that you're not a good scientist if you're motivated by money. And I'm not even saying people should always be motivated by money or something like this, but I think we should be a little bit more critical of this as a rationalization. We should ask, is this a rationalization to obscure the fact that Y equals 0% and the scientists are operating in this sort of world where all the
So wait, now I'm processing this title in relation to what I'm getting of this message. So the title is "Competition is for Losers." The entire message has been about creating a monopoly. So he's not even. So he's saying don't compete, just fucking destroy them bitches. Is that what the fuck he's saying? Like, I don't understand. Like this, a monopoly is very competitive. I'm confused by his like, but then when he described it after that, he was discussing about being a thought leader in the market or differentiating yourself in the market. I feel like if he was using the words like talking about differentiating yourself in the market, being the first to do something in the market, or finding something in the market that you're the only person who can do it, basically, I think those are like good. That would be a productive conversation because that wouldn't be about monopolizing something. I just feel like trying to act like, yeah, creating a monopoly is a good thing bugs me. You know what I'm saying? Because I also see monopolies with people who create conditions so others can't succeed. You know what I mean? But maybe I'm wrong for thinking that. But it's just like where my mind goes. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. But then so it's just like,
innovation is effectively competed away and they can't capture any of it directly. And then the software distortion that often happens is because people are making such vast fortunes in software, we infer that this is the most valuable thing in the world being done, full stop. And so if people at Twitter make billions of dollars, it must be that Twitter is worth far more than anything Einstein did. And what that sort of rationalization tends to obscure is, again, that X and Y are independent variables, and there are these businesses where you capture.
did he just say the people at Twitter did far more worth than Einstein? Hold on, this I gotta go back for. Before I was like, I don't give a fuck if I'm wrong, I'm not going back. But now I'm like, wait a minute, I gotta go back for this. Hold on, what the
all the innovation is effectively competed away and they can't capture any of it directly. And then the software distortion that often happens is because people are making such vast fortunes in software, we infer that this is the most valuable thing in the world being done, full stop. And so if people at Twitter make billions of dollars, it must be that Twitter is worth far more than anything Einstein did. And what that sort of rationalization
He said that. Wow, I'm speechless. He said that. He really said that. Look at his face, too. Wait, I gotta stop. No, wait, I didn't mean to be rude. I just meant the expression. Oh my god. I can't believe he said that. Yeah, okay. So I'm trying to find the value in this lecture. I really am.
tends to obscure is again that X and Y are independent variables, and there are these businesses where you capture a lot of X, and there are others where you don't. And so I do think the history of innovation has been this history where the microeconomics, the structure of these industries has mattered a tremendous amount. And when and there is sort of this story where some people made vast fortunes because they were in industries with the right structure, and other people made nothing at all because they were in these sort of very competitive things. And we shouldn't just rationalize that way. I think it's worth understanding this better. And then finally, let me come back to this sort of overarching theme for this talk, this competition is for losers idea, which is always this provocative way to title things, because we always think of the losers as the people who are not good at competing. We think of the losers as the people who are slow on the track team in high school, or who do a little bit less well on the standardized tests and don't get into the right schools. And so we always think of losers as people who can't compete. And I want us to really rethink and revalue this and consider whether it's possible that competition itself is off. We're sort of, it's not just the case we don't understand this monopoly competition dichotomy intellectually. So that's what I'm talking about why you wouldn't understand it intellectually, because people lie about it, it's distorted. We have all these the history of innovation rationalizes what's happening.
I mean, I feel like there's competition involved with monopolizing, but monopoly isn't necessarily inherently a part of competition. What the?
Happen in all these very, very strange ways. But I think it's more than just an intellectual blind spot. I think it's also a psychological blind spot where we find ourselves very, very attracted to competition in one form or another. We find it reassuring if other people do things. The word ape already in the time of Shakespeare meant both primate and imitate. And there is something about human nature that's deeply mimetic, imitative, ape-like, sheep-like, lemming-like, herd-like. And it's this very, very problematic thing that we need to always think through and try to overcome. And there is always this question about competition as a form of validation, where we go for things that lots of other people are going for. And it's not that there's wisdom in crowds.
I feel like this is probably my least favorite lecture. Like that we've done out of all this. He's made a couple of points where I was like, okay, I could see where you're going. Like before, I liked what he was saying when he was talking about some bullshit. I forgot shit. I just blanked on it, and I just thought of it too. Fucking fuck. What the fuck was that shit? So I think he was talking about some shit about how like on one level, like not competition, like it can be good to, want to do things that other people aren't doing in order to not be in an oversaturated market, right? Like those are good points to make. Like he'll make like certain things, like he'll say things where I'm like, there are good points you can get out of this if you just reword everything he said to be something better. But the words he said as they are, I don't like them. If I'm making sense. You know what I mean? Um, and yeah, but I also feel like there is a point to be made with competition as validation, though, with like the Jones effect, I guess, people keeping up with the Joneses.
It's not when lots of people are trying to do something that's proof of it being valuable. I think it's when lots of people are trying to do something that is often proof of insanity. There are 20,000 people a year who move to Los Angeles to become movie stars. About 20 of them make it. I think the Olympics are a little bit better because you have you can sort of figure out pretty quickly whether you're good or not. So there's a little bit less of a dead weight loss to society.
And again, there's a difference between total addressable market and barriers of opportunity into a market, right? So, for example, there's only a certain amount of movies that can be produced. However, everybody needs to eat. You know what I mean? Just saying.
society. Your the sort of educational experience in place, the pre-Stanford educational experience. There's always sort of a non-competitive characterization. I think most of the people in this room had machine guns. They were competing with people with bows and arrows, so it wasn't exactly a parallel competition when you were in junior high school and high school. There's always a question: does the tournament make sense as you keep going? And this is so there is always this question: if people go on to grad school or postdoctoral educations, does the intensity of the competition really make sense? There's the classic Henry Kissinger line that describing his fellow faculty at Harvard that the battles were so ferocious because the stakes were so small, describing sort of academia. And you sort of think on one level, this is a description of insanity. Why would people fight like crazy when the stakes are so small? But it's also, I think, simply a function of the logic of the situation. When it's really hard to differentiate.
I've been wondering about this regarding TikTok live streams. The way people argue in TikTok lives is just like, holy fuck. And then when they start acting like they're gonna fight each other, I'm like, y'all live in states hundreds of miles away. Let's be real. You fucking people can't afford a fucking plane ticket to go fucking fight each other. Like, are you kidding me?
Differentiate yourself from other people. When the objective differences really are small, then you have to compete ferociously to maintain a difference of one sort or another that's often more imaginary than real. There's always sort of the personal version of this that I tell, where I was sort of hyper tracked. My 8th grade junior high school yearbook, when my friends wrote in, I know to get into Stanford in 4 years as a sophomore. Sort of went to Stanford 4 years later, in high school, went to Stanford Law School, ended up at a big law firm in New York, where from the outside everybody wanted to get in, on the inside everybody wanted to leave. And it was this very strange dynamic where after I sort of realized it was maybe not the best idea, and I left after 7 months and 3 days. One of the people down the hall from me told me, it's really reassuring to see you leave, Peter. I had no idea that it was possible to escape from Alcatraz. Which of course, all you had to do was go out the front door and not come back. But so much of people's identities got wrapped up in winning these competitions that they somehow lost sight of what was important, what was valuable. Competition does make you better at whatever it is that you're competing on. Because when you're competing, you're comparing yourself with the people around you. You're figuring out, how do I beat the people next to me? How do I do somewhat better at whatever it is they're doing? And you will get better at that thing. I'm not questioning that. I'm not denying that. But it often comes at this tremendous price that you stop asking some bigger questions about what's truly important and truly valuable. And so I would say that don't always go through the tiny little door that everyone's trying to rush through. And maybe go around the corner and go through the vast gate that no one's taking. Thank you very much.
Okay, but again, if competition is bad, then if you're a loser, were you competing to be a winner? Like, I don't, what is this? Huh? So were the winners just not competing then?
Okay, time for, you want to take a few questions? Or? Sorry? Oh, yeah, people want to I'll take a few questions, so we have 2 minutes time. Yeah, go ahead.
Since, as you mentioned, very often monopolies and competition often looks similar because the narrative people tell the narrative tell ourselves. Do you have any ways to easily determine the difference when you think an idea or evaluating your own idea?
Well, I'd say the question I always try to focus on is what is the actual market? So not what's the narrative of the market, because you can always tell a fictional story about a market that's much bigger or much smaller, but what is the real objective market? So it's always, you always try to figure it out, and you realize people have incentives to powerfully distort these things. Yeah.
So which of the aspects of monopolies that you mentioned would you say are so for like Google and Thiel?
Well, they have network effects with the ad network. They had proprietary technology that gave them the initial lead because they had the PageRank algorithm, which was.
And you see, this is why I think word choice matters, because now we've got people here like, so how can I start a monopoly? You know what I mean?
Sort of an order of magnitude better than any other search engine. You have economies of scale because of the need to store all these different sites, and at this point you have brands. So Google has all 4. Maybe the proprietary technology is somewhat weaker at this point, but definitely it had all 4, and maybe 3.5 out of 4 now. Yeah.
How does this apply to calendar and second aspect?
The second is what?
What's with the iPhone?
That's a sort of a set of companies that are doing different copycat payment systems on mobile phones. There's Square, there's PayPal. They just have sort of different shapes. That's how they differentiate themselves. One is triangle, one is square. And so maybe at some point the apes will run out of shapes or something like that. But I think Palantir, we started with a focus on the intelligence community, which is small sub-market. You had a proprietary technology that used a very, very different approach, where it was focused on the human computer synthesis rather than the substitution, which I think is the dominant paradigm. So there's a whole set of things I would say on the.
Okay, but am I wrong? Or, like, I'm over here like, dude, I don't think I'm stoned, but now I feel like I could be, but I'm just kidding. Fucking, but this dude, they were like, so they're like asking about PayPal, and he's over here like, synthesis. Like, what? What the fuck is he saying? Like, and he's just using these buzzwords. He's like, synthesis, proprietary technology. I'm like, bitch, can't you just say it's a platform where you can send and receive money? God damn.
On the market approach and the proprietary technology. Yes.
We have design thinking methodology and lean startup thinking, which is easy to mitigate risk by not creating things that people don't want. But how do young innovators have inspiration to create complex systems that last? Can you repeat that?
Yeah, so the question is, what do you think about lean startups, iterative thinking where you get feedback from people versus complexity that may not work? So I am personally quite skeptical of all the lean startup methodology. I think the really great companies did something with sort of somewhat more quantum improvement that really differentiated them from everybody else. They typically did not do massive customer surveys. The people who ran these companies sometimes not always suffered from mild forms of Asperger's, so they were not actually that influenced, not that easily deterred by what other people thought or told them to do. So I do think we're way too focused on iteration as a modality and not enough on trying to have a virtual ESP link with the public and figuring it out ourselves. I would say that let me see. I would say that I'm not quite, the risk question I think is always a very tricky one because there are, it's often, I think it's often the case that you don't have enough time to really mitigate risk. If you're going to take enough time to figure out what people want, you often will have.
So I myself blank on shit, like I was doing that earlier, trying to think of an example of shit he was saying. Um, but I do think it's interesting where right after I was criticizing him for just using a bunch of big ass words instead of just answering a simple fucking question, he's now stumbling over his words and then just responding with some other shit that I feel like, is this even, are you, but okay, maybe I'm not even giving him a chance, am I though? But okay.
Missed the boat by then. And then, of course, there's always the risk of doing something that's not that significant or meaningful. So, you could say a track in law school is a low-risk track from one perspective. It may still be a very high-risk track in the sense that maybe you have a high risk of not doing something meaningful with your life. So we have to think about risk in these very complicated ways. I think risk is sort of this very complicated concept. Yes?
As a for lack of advantage, but then doesn't that imply that there's already competition to begin
And he's like, risk is complicated. Why not address risk mitigation, my friend?
Yeah, so there's always this terminology thing. So I would say that there are categories in which people sort of are bundled together. I would say the monopoly businesses were, in effect, they really were a big first mover in some sense. You could say Google was not the first search engine. There were other search engines before, but on one dimension, they were dramatically better than everybody else. So they were the first one with PageRank, with sort of an automated approach. Facebook was not the first social networking site. My friend Reid Hoffman started one in 1997. They called it Social Nets. They already had the name social networking in the name of their company 7 years before Facebook. Their idea was that it was going to be this virtual cyberspace where I'd be a dog and you'd be a cat, and we'd have all these different rules about how we interact with each other in this virtual alternate reality. Facebook was the first one to get real identity. So
That doesn't sound like a good platform for me.
so I'd say, I hope Facebook will be the last social networking site. It was the first one in a very important dimension. People often would not think of it as the first because they sort of lump all these things together. Okay, one more question. Let's take one here.
If you're theoretically someone who worked at Goldman Sachs out of college and left out for 6 months and is now studying computer science at Stanford, how would you recommend rethinking sort of
I don't have a great. I'm not great at the psychotherapy stuff. So I don't quite know how to solve this. But there are these very odd studies they've done on people who go to business school. There's one they've done at Harvard Business School where it's sort of the anti-Asperger personality, where people are super extroverted, generally have low convictions.
This just feels ableist as fuck, right? Like, am I wrong for thinking this whole fucking lecture has been problematic, but this part, like, what the fuck? Do they still talk like this at Stanford?
A few ideas, and you have sort of a hothouse environment. You put all these people in for 2 years, and at the end of it, the largest cohort systematically ends up doing the wrong thing. They try to catch the last wave. 1989, everyone at Harvard tried to work for Mike Milken. It was 1 or 2 years before he went to jail for all the dunk bond stuff. They were never interested in Silicon Valley or tech except for 99, 2000 when they timed the dot-com bubble peaking perfectly. They did, and then 05 to 07 was housing, private equity, stuff like this. So I do think this tendency for us to see competition as validation is very deep. I don't think there's any sort of easy psychological formula to avoid it. So I don't quite know how to what sort of therapy to recommend. But my first starting point, which is only like maybe 10% of the way, is to never underestimate how big a problem it is. We always think this is something that afflicts other people. So it's easy for me to point to people in business schools or people at Harvard or people on Wall Street. I think it actually does afflict all of us to a very profound degree. We always think of advertising as things that work on other people. Who are all these stupid people who fall for all those ads on TV? They obviously work to some extent, and they work to a disturbing extent on all of us, and it's something we all should work to overcome.
That brings me back to the Billy Mays effect and Mikayla Nogueira. You know what I'm saying? There's literally 10 seconds.
Thank you very much.
Yep, that's it. Fucking yeah. And in conclusion, where he was like talking about how fucking there's always like people who are problematic or people who are disturbing but like still do well with business, right? Like, yeah. So fucking this whole lecture is, there were things about it where I'm like, okay, there could be good points here, but I just really was disappointed in his delivery. I mean, I guess I don't even know why I had expectations. He fucking worked with Elon Musk, so I should have lowered them way down right then and there, shouldn't I? Huh? Fucking, but, yeah, so I guess I want to like where he is going with concepts about how move past competition and let's focus on your offer, you know? I prefer my old professor's wording of collaboration over competition, you know what I mean? But where he takes it, like, the whole degrading thing, I don't like it. And I'm like, It just feels hypocritical, right? But that's just me. I don't know. And there's just like the way he words everything. I don't like the place that I feel it comes from. Like either whether it's systemically or consciously or subconsciously, I don't know individually here, like whatever this is. But there's just like I feel like where is he on his value alignment journey, or was he ever there? You know what I mean? And yeah, I feel like I like went into wanting to do this live stream like I've got a plan for this. I've got some ideas for this. I feel like I'm going to give a little spiel on why I feel this marketing personality is working for this person and going to be their downfall when it came to comparing Mikayla Nogueira to Billy Mays, right? And then I just feel like between my like inability to focus in my rambling on that topic and in between me trying to pay attention to this lecture but really just not liking shit he was saying, that this live stream is like probably one of the more like bleh ones I've done, but and like where I'm at energy wise, but it's just like I don't know. I'm still just gonna like let it sit for a while, marinate. Fucking maybe I will process more later and be able to give a better job on articulating the issues I have on the situations on this entire live stream, whether it's with the Mikayla Nogueira situation, regarding the advertising and the social perception there and the social issues there, or regarding the Peter Thiel's lecture here called Competition is for Losers from Stanford University, provided by Y Combinator Live or whatever. Yeah, I feel like if I process more on these issues, either one, I'll come back to it. If I don't come back to it, I didn't process anything I felt was worth sharing. Cause I'm not even sure, this processing live is just like hard sometimes to feel like you're adding value when you don't understand what you're saying as you're saying it because you're still processing or I'm still you know what I mean? Am I making sense? Yeah. Alright. My words suck today. Fucking, but whatever. I'm glad I'm processing. Thanks for processing with me. We're processing together, right? Fucking. So, just to wrap this up a little bit better, with the Mikayla Nogueira situation, the reason I covered her today was because, like, she's been going viral for a long time. And like fucking I was thinking about it because like every now and then her videos will be coming up on my For You page and so I'll be seeing her content. And so I was just thinking about it and then I was thinking of Billy Mays because I don't know, I'm fucking weird. And I was just like, you know what? Like watching Mikayla reminded me of Billy Mays. And I was like, this is why her advertising like works in terms of capturing attention and drawing people in, I think. Um, and also in terms of increasing sales and helping brands by the amount of people who she's giving visibility to their offer and their brand name through the videos, in my opinion. So I feel like that's why her shit works, but it's also why it could be her downfall if people don't perceive her as genuine or authentic and she's trying to talk people to invest their resources into these offers that they don't feel like she's living up to their expectations or the things she's selling are, she's just gonna fuck herself even more, I think. Um, but that's just my opinion. And then the whole Peter Thiel thing, like the rest of, like, even though I had criticisms with other lectures, you know, there were certain things that I didn't like. Overall, fucking with the other lectures, like I really felt like we got a lot more value, a lot more education, um, and like almost everything that they were saying in those other lectures, I felt like were things that were like, okay, you can take these actionable things and actually consider that in starting up your business. This one, I guess it was a bit more theoretical. Like some of it could really be useful for anyone with startup when you're thinking of it theoretically, but a lot of it, it's like you really have to just take what he's saying and really put your own meaning into these words to get something out of it. You know what I mean? Because the way he worded things was so problematic in my opinion, particularly with the quote unquote Asperger's comment towards the end there. That one, I was like, holy fuck. Like, I don't even have the mental energy to really comment on that right now. But what I will do is, it's more related to the deaf community, but I think it still applies. And a lot of this information, you know, like, it works out, like, for people in that level of their understanding of, you know, I'm going to link a crash course on ableist language, and it's from, as it relates to deaf community, from my Deaf Awareness Month playlist. I'm saying deaf, DEAF. But, fucking, it keeps putting death, but not deaf. Um, I hate it. Anyway, so I'm gonna put that shit in the description of this video because I feel like, you know, that should go in there. There's something else I said I wanted to put in the description of this video too, but I'm blanking on that. But if I remember what that was, I'll add that in too. Alright, this plane is crashing, so thank you so much for joining me tonight. I appreciate you. I hope you have a good night. And, yeah, bye. Thanks for watching. Join the loyalty program at noladeafchild.com/loyalty and check in during live streams to get points for rewards.